Iron deficiency is one of the most common and one of the most missed causes of fatigue. But the good news is it is treatable. And with the right information, a bit of patience and a simple plan, you can rebuild your energy and start to feel like yourself again.
And for kids with developmental delays, making sure that they get enough iron can significantly improve their cognitive function and behaviour.
So in this video, we're going to break down exactly how we can do that, how we can safely fix your low iron, and how we can avoid the common mistakes that stop your levels from improving.
And I'll be back later.
Great, welcome back. This is the third in a series of 3 videos all about iron. The first one, we spoke about how absolutely important iron is for every process in our body, really. The second one showed how we can look at optimal test ranges, not the ranges that the doctors are given when they get their lab results back. And this third video, we're going to find out what we can do about your iron levels. The good news is that iron deficiency is treatable, but like most vitamin and mineral deficiencies, it does take time and consistency, and you will need to follow a schedule. But most importantly, it will make you feel a whole lot better. So please consult your qualified healthcare provider for personalised advice, because the symptoms of iron deficiency can be caused by all sorts of infections and diseases and other issues that need attention. So this video is for education only, and it's not personal advice in any way. So if you haven't seen our videos before, we're really pleased that you've found us, because our purpose is to help you take control of your own health. And each one of our videos is based entirely on scientific evidence and provides simple steps that you can take to improve your health. And today we're looking at how we can increase our iron levels if they're low. So please grab a notepad and a pen and do make some notes, and it will help you remember, because I know I'm going to give you a lot of information to take in. So just feel free to pause me and go back a bit if you need to, because in our previous video we explored how we check our iron levels using accurate test ranges for ferritin, hemoglobin and TSAT. And these levels are based on the UK NICE guidelines. These are not based on the ranges that the labs give to the doctors, because those lab ranges often indicate that your iron level is fine, when in reality your level is absolutely abnormal. So I will put links here in case you missed it, because once you start correcting your iron deficiency, it will be important to test your levels regularly to make sure that your body is safely managing the iron that you're taking in. So if you are low in iron, I would absolutely recommend joining the Facebook group called the Iron Protocol. It's a really huge group. It's got over 200,000 members, and it has a free protocol that gives you the knowledge and the confidence to overcome your iron deficiency. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some of the foundations of the Iron Protocol, and it's been written by Caitlin R. Hartigan. So the goal is to reach and maintain optimal recovery levels of ferritin, and they recommend having over 125 ferritin level. So the group goes on to remind us that increasing our iron levels is going to take some time, and Caitlin says that it's not a fast process, but your mental fog and your anxiety will lift with every month on the protocol. The only focus needed to be worried about is reaching the minimum goal of at least 125 for 6 months. And she says it usually takes 4 to 6 months to get there. And the longer you've been deficient, then it might take longer, and you might need to reach a higher level than the 125 for a longer period of time before you start feeling better. So the Iron Protocol is based on evidence from organisations such as the American Hematology Society, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing information from the UK guidelines. So the reason it is important to follow a well-established protocol when you're trying to increase your iron levels is that you will need to have a significantly higher amount of iron than you can obtain from just a general multivitamin tablet or that you can get from food. But having excessive iron can become toxic. So a doctor or the iron protocol will guide you on how to calculate a safe amount of iron that you can take, and it will be based on your weight, and it will customize the amount of iron specific to you, and it will show you how to check that you are doing it safely. So please do join the Iron Protocol group for more information and for their recommendations on supplements, infusions, on dosing and testing. And most importantly, the group will give you a lot of reassurance that you're doing it properly and safely. So this is important when you are addressing any deficiency, because it is really common to experience fluctuations in your symptoms. And sometimes you might even feel worse temporarily because your body is readjusting and getting all sorts of processes working that have been struggling for a really long time. So having a support network of knowledgeable people and resources can be tremendously helpful whenever you're trying to fix a deficiency. So now we're just going to have a look at what we can do safely at home to boost our iron levels just from the food that we eat every day. Because already we've seen that increasing our iron levels through diet is a gradual process, but with time you will start to feel better. And I would definitely recommend using an app such as Chronometer, which is a free app, and that can help you track how much iron you're getting every day. And it can personalise your daily intake depending on your age and your sex. And it's most especially important if you're pregnant to make sure you are getting enough iron for you and your growing baby to keep you safe. So how much iron do we need? Now, strangely enough, different countries recommend different amounts. So I'm going to share the amounts that are recommended in the UK and also in the USA. And if there's a decimal point, I'll round it up. The government sets a daily recommended amount that's based on the amount a healthy person would need every day to avoid developing a deficiency or disease. So the recommended daily intake for men is 8 milligrams a day. In the UK it's 9. For women of childbearing age, in the UK it is 15, but in America it's 18 milligrams a day. For women aged over 50, it's 9 milligrams a day. Now, this is where things become tricky, because in the UK, the guidelines for a pregnant woman is 15 milligrams a day, whereas in the USA, they recommend a pregnant woman has 27 milligrams a day. Now, if you've already seen my first video on how absolutely important iron is when you're pregnant, then 27 milligrams a day is the level I would be aiming for, even though I'm in the UK and our government says 15. Vegetarians really should aim for double the recommended daily intake if you're relying on non-meat forms of iron. And children aged 11 plus actually need more iron than their parents depending on their age and sex. So do check the amount that your child would need depending on their age, because it is incredibly important as they're growing. As you would have seen in my first video here, that goes into all the important processes that iron is involved in and how crucial it is for child development. So remember that these values, the recommended daily intake amounts, are the amounts that the government says a healthy person that already has good ferritin levels needs to maintain their health. These levels are not giving you any extra to fix an iron deficiency if your levels are low. So if you have identified that you have iron deficiency, you will need to consume more than this amount every day to build up your iron levels. And we will have a look at what you will need to eat in real life to get that much iron from your food. But something that makes a huge difference is what type of iron you are eating. The iron in our food comes in two different forms. There's heme iron, which we get from eating animal meat, and then there's non-heme iron that we get from plants and supplements. So we're going to look at heme iron first, and then we'll talk about the elemental iron that's from plants and that's in most of the supplements that you get. Heme iron is the type of iron that our body can absorb from meat really easily because it doesn't need to be chemically changed by vitamin C, like the non-heme iron does. So the absolutely best sources of heme iron is animal liver and mussels and oysters. And it was these foods that made a really big difference to Elliot's ferritin levels and got his levels up. So the top layer of the very best sources of heme iron are animal liver, mussels and oysters. They are absolutely the best. Then the next layer down that would give you about half the amount of iron would be sardines and lean beef. They have about half the amount that liver and mussels do. And then below that would be chicken thighs. That has about half the amount again as beef. So the reason why getting iron from animal meat is particularly good for us is that the iron doesn't work alone in our bodies. It depends on a lot of other vitamins and minerals. And these excellent sources of iron that we've just mentioned, the liver and the mussels, also contain really great amounts of the other nutrients that we need for our good health, such as they include high quality protein, they include activated vitamin A, a lot of B vitamins, minerals such as copper, zinc and selenium and chromium, and they also contain CoQ10. So for example, it's really easy to buy a packet of cooked mussels without their shells in the supermarket. They come in packs that are frozen. So if you had a cupful of mussels, which is about 135 grams, you can chuck it into stir fries or fish pies, seafood risottos, and that will give you about 9 grams of iron, which is about the amount that a man or an older lady needs a day. It would also give you well over your daily needs of selenium, manganese, B12, and a whole load of other B vitamins and zinc and copper. And the great news is mussels are fine to eat when you're pregnant, as long as they are fully cooked and from a safe source. So in real life, if you're pregnant, and I'm going to use the American recommended daily intake because it is so important while you're pregnant. So while you're pregnant, your daily recommended intake of 27 milligrams a day that would provide you and your baby with the iron you both need. To obtain that from iron-rich mussels, which are one of the easiest forms and fullest forms of iron that you can get, you would need to eat a whole packet of 400 grams of mussels in a day. But if you compared that with sardines or beef, you can see how amazing mussels are, because to get that 27 milligrams of iron you need when you're pregnant from sardines or beef, you'd have to eat around 1 kilogram a day of those. So the other thing that we looked at that was also a good source of iron was livers. And I'm a huge fan of chicken livers because they are packed full of all the goodness, but they contain well under half the amount of the vitamin A as the other animal livers, because the beef and the lamb and pig liver all have extremely high levels of vitamin A, and that can cause some issues. And if you're pregnant, the standard recommendation is to completely avoid liver while you're pregnant, because there is a very small risk of vitamin A toxicity. But chicken liver contains significantly lower levels of vitamin A, and so one chicken liver weighs about 30 grams, and that one chicken liver would contain 3.5 milligrams of iron, which is just under half of an older lady or a man's daily intake. And it would also contain really good levels of your copper and your selenium and your zinc, lots of B2 and B5, B9 and B12, and all the vitamin A that you need. And it's really cheap, and you can batch cook them and then freeze them into chunks, and it doesn't lose any of its nutritional value, which makes it really easy. You can just slice it up and add it into all sorts of meals every day without really noticing the taste, and it works out a lot more affordable than buying a heme iron supplement. And also, if you have histamine intolerance, if you buy frozen liver and cook it quickly and refreeze it to use whenever you want, that's also really low in histamines. So the only thing that affects the amount of iron that you can absorb from meat is calcium, which is interesting because it's actually one of the laws that God gave to Moses in the Bible, and that was not to cook a goat in milk. So this is ancient wisdom that we shouldn't have iron-rich foods at the same time as calcium-rich foods, because it will just stop you absorbing the iron. So I know some people just can't cope with the thought of having liver because it might be challenging and it's quite a strong taste for some people. And so they do prefer to use supplements that are made from animal organs. And that still contains the great combination of the natural vitamins and minerals that are absolutely essential for our body. and they can make a really big difference to your health. And there are several really good versions. They can be made from beef or lamb, and they can contain spleen and liver and heart. So just be a bit careful about the amount of beef liver in them if you are pregnant and you decide to take a heme iron supplement. So the benefits of supplementing with heme iron are that they are a great option for most people because it's so highly absorbable and it doesn't require you to take vitamin C. And there's hardly any side effects for most people, unlike the non-heme iron supplements. And they don't interact with thyroid medication or any other of the vitamins and minerals that you might be taking. I'll put a link in the comments below for a few different versions from Amazon that might be worth having a look at. So the Iron Protocol has analysed the Facebook group's progress and testimonies of people using heme iron supplements, and they found that most people increase their ferritin levels really well when they take them. But if you are taking a lot of them, it's worth spacing them out during the first half of the day, and they found that you don't need to take as much heme iron supplements as you do as the non-heme iron supplements. So if you'd like to know more about that, please do join the Iron Protocol Facebook group, and the group will advise you to always start with a very low dose if you supplement and work your way up at a slow, gentle pace. And it's always best to test the safety of your dose by checking your TSAT levels, which I discussed in my iron blood test video. So go back and have a look at that if you start supplementing. Okay, so that was heme iron. Now we're going to look at all the other iron food and supplements, including what you're prescribed by the doctor, because they will all be non-heme iron. It's also called elemental iron. And there's a lot more to talk about with non-heme iron because it has a much lower absorption rate. So some plants that are high in iron are things like lentils and spinach and chickpeas, and pumpkin seeds all have high levels of iron when you look at them on paper. And there is a really big but about the amount you will actually get from them, because studies on iron absorption from beans suggest that the bioavailability of iron may be as little as 0.4%. So the reason it's so difficult to absorb iron from plants is that the plants also contain substances called phytates, oxalates, polyphenols and tannins, and all of these conspire against you when your body is trying to pull the iron out. Now, you can try and reduce these awkward substances by soaking beans and lentils overnight and then discarding the water, and we'll come back to that. But first, let's talk about a vitamin that will make all the difference to how quickly you can increase the amount of iron that you can absorb from plants and supplements, and that is the hugely important vitamin C. Eating your lentils and spinach with foods that are rich in vitamin C is absolutely crucial to allow your body to absorb the iron, because the type of iron that's in plants and non-meat supplements needs to be chemically changed by vitamin C. That's the only way that your guts can absorb it well. So it is absolutely really important to pair any iron supplements or plant-based iron with vitamin C foods. So that would be things like citrus fruit, strawberries and kiwi, broccoli. They all have good levels of vitamin C in, and having vitamin C with it will triple the amount of non-heme iron that you can actually absorb. So taking vitamin C with non-animal iron is very important. So the American Society of Hematology says that vitamin C, or ascorbic acid, improves iron absorption, and some doctors recommend that you take 250 milligrams of vitamin C with iron tablets. So this amount of vitamin C is much more than you can easily get from food, because you'd need to eat 3 or 4 oranges to get that amount of vitamin C. So taking some vitamin C with each meal will make a huge difference to the amount of iron you can actually get from your food. The Iron Protocol advice is to take any non-heme iron with several cups of water and 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C with each dose. So vitamin C helps us to absorb iron, but now let's talk about those substances that block or inhibit us from absorbing iron, and they are things like phytates. Almonds, almond milk, almond flour all contain very high levels of phytic acid, and also spinach which is quite ironic because it is one of the highest sources of iron, but it also has a lot of phytates, which is going to inhibit your absorption of iron. So other things that have high levels of phytates are rhubarb, beet greens, and sweet potatoes. It's tricky, isn't it? So it just makes it really tricky getting iron from vegetables. Polyphenols and tannins that are found in tea and coffee and wine will also reduce the amount of iron you can absorb from your plant-based food. So if you drink your tea with your meals, that's going to restrict the amount of iron that you're going to absorb from that food. So the best advice is to drink your tea at least an hour away from your meals either side. Another thing that has a huge impact on the amount of iron you can absorb is if you're on antacids or PPI medication, because the whole purpose of those is to reduce your stomach acid, and you need to have good levels of stomach acid to absorb iron. Again, this makes getting iron very tricky for some people. There are also other medications, including thyroid medications, antibiotics, and blood pressure medications, and they can all affect how much iron you can absorb. So it's important to check the timings of when you're having your iron and your medications so that they don't interfere with each other. Also, if you're supplementing other minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and zinc, they can all interfere with the amount of iron that you can absorb. But also be very careful to check the amount of calcium that's in your non-dairy milk substitute that you're going to be having with your cereal. If you're using almond milk or anything that has high calcium levels in it, that will block you absorbing the iron from your Weetabix. So what can we do to improve this situation? Well, it's important to be strict about avoiding having tea, coffee, wine and dairy for at least 1 hour before and after meals, and we can soak and sprout our legumes and grains to reduce the phytates. Remember that you will need to have a good amount of vitamin C at the same time so that you can absorb them. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. So iron supplements are sometimes necessary, especially for women who have very heavy periods and are losing a lot of blood, vegetarians, and those who have ferritin levels of 30 or less, because those are iron deficient as per the NICE guidelines. And the government guidelines on iron supplementation when you're pregnant is to be guided by your GP or your antenatal clinic. But if you do take a multivitamin, the UK government recommends that it should have less than 17 milligrams of iron in it a day. But remember that in America, they recommend having 27 milligrams of iron a day if you're pregnant. So do bear that in mind. If you are getting help from your doctor, they may have prescribed you with a high-dose iron tablet. So doctors traditionally will prescribe ferrous salts such as ferrous gluconate or ferrous fumarate or ferrous sulfate, but these are all notorious for causing severe side effects, especially constipation, nausea, vomiting and stomach pain. If we look again at what the NICE guidelines say, they say under the heading anemia and iron deficiency, a dose of 65 milligrams of elemental iron. So they prescribe you probably a box of ferrous sulfate or ferrous fumarate tablets, and it will say 200 milligrams on the front. But on the back, when you look at it, it'll only have 65 milligrams of actual iron in it. So they recommend that you take one of these tablets once a day on an empty stomach, and that's the government guidelines for treating anemia. It does say that dose-related adverse effects, so gastrointestinal disturbance from taking an iron supplement, are commonly experienced. So this is something you need to be aware of, and you need to discuss it carefully with your doctor to manage it effectively. But if you're buying your own iron supplements, there is a lot of choice available and a lot of different versions that are much easier on your stomach. And so we'll talk about those now. And if you do get your own supplements, only do purchase reputable brands, and always check the independent reviews of the company, and always do make sure it's safe for you to supplement, and speak to your doctor to check for any interactions with any drugs that you are taking. So if you do buy an iron supplement that contains non-heme iron, the actual iron content in the supplement will be stated on the nutritional label on the back. Ignore the amount that's indicated on the front label because that shows the compound amount and only a small part of that will actually be iron. So the iron protocol has a lot of advice and a lot of recommendations on the supplements that the group have found to work, and they will help you calculate the safe amount of elemental iron that most people end up needing to treat their iron deficiency. So they advise that it's most effective taking non-heme iron supplements in the morning and in the early afternoon on an empty stomach with 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and a lot of water with each iron dose. And that helps with the tummy issues. The National Institute of Health Office of Dietary Supplements has this to say about iron. Other forms of supplemental iron such as heme iron or carbonyl iron or amino acid chelates and polysaccharide iron complexes may have fewer gastrointestinal side effects. So there are better versions that have less side effects, and I'll link some versions that many people have found effective in the comments below. So the next section is to make a schedule. Because now you have to remember to take your supplements. Making a schedule is really important to help you plan when you're going to take your supplements, especially if you do have other medication that's going to affect your ability to absorb your iron. So again, the iron protocol has a couple of example timetables that you can tailor to your own circumstances. And they also recommend things like to help you remember to take your iron. You can put your iron and your vitamin C where you're going to see them when you first wake up in the morning so that you remember to take them on an empty stomach. And some people set an alarm to remind themselves to take it an hour before lunch or something. So just remember, really important to drink lots of water when you take your non-heme supplements. And this is what has made the protocol work for a lot of people because it helps with the headaches and the cramping and the nausea. So drinking a lot and vitamin C. So now we're just going to look at some problem solving, because remember that when you're trying to fix a deficiency, it's unlikely that you're going to have a nice, smooth, easy journey of recovery. You're going to encounter some rough patches and some side effects. So that's another really good reason for joining the Iron Protocol group, because they have such a lot of help and support, and they can guide you through many of the issues that you're going to have because others will have already experienced the same thing. And also because your body is starting up processes that haven't worked very well for a long time and they're suddenly now becoming active. These processes are going to need more than just iron because so many vitamins and minerals work together, especially vitamin D and B12. And so that's why they have overlapping symptoms, and your body might need more B12 and vitamin D than usual. And so regular testing of all these different labs is really important. And I provided a lot of information in my iron testing video, which I linked earlier. What happens if you've been really trying hard to increase your iron intake, but your ferritin levels just don't seem to change? Well, first, remember that iron deficiency doesn't just appear out of nowhere. And there are three main reasons why you become iron deficient. Either you're not getting enough in, you're not absorbing it properly, or you're losing it somewhere. So we've covered what you can do to get more in. So the next thing to check is whether you are actually absorbing it. So think about, are you taking any medications or supplements at the same time as your iron that's interfering with your absorbing the iron? If you're on PPIs or thyroid medications, for example. The second thing to think of, are you taking enough vitamin C to convert your non-heme iron into the form that your body can absorb? Also remember that to absorb iron, you do need good stomach acid levels and a healthy gut lining. But two things can quietly stop that. And the first is a bacteria called H. pylori, and that lives in your stomach and it lowers your stomach acid, which means that you just can't release the iron properly from your food. And you might not even know that you have it. It can live there for years. So if you can get tested for H. pylori and you find it's positive, you can have treatment for it, and it can make a huge difference to how much stomach acid you have and how much iron you can absorb. So it's definitely worth asking your doctor to get that checked if it hasn't already been done. Another thing that affects your absorption is if you have celiac disease. Even if you only have it mildly, it can damage part of your small intestines where your iron and your B12 and folate are absorbed. Sometimes the only sign that you have celiac is because you can't absorb iron. So if you're absorbing it and you're eating enough, then maybe you're losing it. So some women have very heavy or prolonged periods, and that's probably the most common cause of ongoing iron loss. And iron deficiency can cause more blood loss. So if that is something that you suffer with, it really is worth mentioning it to your doctor, because blood loss that seems normal to you can still be enough to cause chronic iron deficiency. Also, some people do lose blood in their digestive tract if you've got ulcers or polyps or hemorrhoids, or even tiny leaks that you can't see. So if you are struggling with your iron deficiency and you've been working on it, then it really is important to see your doctor, because iron is part of a much bigger system, and it's about understanding why your body got low in the first place. So do remember to be gentle with yourself and listen to what your body is telling you. There's absolutely no need to push yourself too hard. And if you find you're getting too many issues with one particular supplement, then do try a different version of iron, because there's many different forms of iron and some might suit you better than others. So another way to increase your iron is to have an iron infusion. And they are generally considered to be safe, but some people do have really terrible reactions to them, and it can make them feel like they're dying. So again, the iron protocol contains a wealth of valuable information on the various versions of iron infusions, and it also recommends that you do some extra testing if you're thinking of having an iron infusion, especially to check your vitamin D, your calcium and your phosphate levels, and sort these out if they are low before you have an iron infusion, because that can reduce the risk of you having a bad reaction. So to wrap it up, iron is vital for our brain development and overall health, especially in children and pregnant women. And iron deficiency is far more common than most people think. So here are some tips to maintain healthy iron levels. Eat iron-rich foods regularly, especially during your period and your pregnancy. And pair iron with vitamin C for better absorption. Avoid drinking tea or coffee with your meals, and join the iron protocol for more information and support. Also, make sure you stick to a schedule and prioritize treating your iron deficiency, because it is really important. And get your blood work done after the first month or 6 weeks when you first start iron supplements, and then get it rechecked every couple of months after that to make sure that you're doing it safely and effectively. And your quality of life will improve drastically when you do fix your iron deficiency. Well done. Thank you for sticking with me through these 3 videos. It's been a lot of work, and it's taken me a few months to get all this information together so that you have it all in one place. So if this has helped you understand why iron isn't always straightforward, please do share it with someone else who's been struggling with low iron and fatigue. And please do subscribe, because we're going to carry on breaking down these complex topics and giving clear explanations that will help you to rebuild your energy and to give you the confidence that your body can heal. So do be excited, because you are about to feel so much better. You really have got this. So please do like and subscribe, because we're constantly bringing out new films. So here's Elliot with his Curiosity Corner.
Welcome back to my Curiosity Corner. Have you ever heard of the tiny immortal jellyfish? The species Turritopsis dornii can actually reverse its life cycle. If an adult, known as a medusa, becomes stressed or damaged, instead of dying, it curls up, turns into a blob-like cyst on the seafloor, and then transforms back into a polyp, its earliest stage, and then grows up again. Scientists call this process transdifferentiation, and in perfect conditions, the jellyfish may be able to avoid death by old age altogether. Of course, it still faces predators and disease, so immortal doesn't mean invincible. But as far as we know, this tiny creature is one of the only animals on Earth able to rewind its biological clock.